of me personally, and Pamela Geller, and Robert Spencer, and others at the Conservative Political Action Conference, which is sponsored by the American Conservative Union, on whose board both of them serve. There was a program this weekend, I commend it to you, I think you can find it, if not just yet, shortly at Breitbart.com, of a panel called The Uninvited.
It's on YouTube.
On YouTube, in which I and Robert Spencer and Pam Geller and former Attorney General Michael Mukasey and a number of others were allowed to speak because we were not allowed to speak at CPAC.
We only have time for 2 more questions. I apologize. I want to briefly recognize Rabbi Fred Kazin, who I'm calling on, who is the recipient of our Guardian of Israel Award. I also want to recognize Terry Adams of the Independence Hall Tea Party, who is a friend of our organization.
This is a very quick and personal question. Susan Rice, Chuck Hagel, how do people, when you're told, let's say by Obama, you'll take care of this for me, you'll lie, you'll do this, you'll do that. You worked in the Reagan administration. How does Susan Rice, who occupied an office beside him, they would smoke together, Chuck Hagel and he would take a plane together, how does the king tell the subjects, don't those people feel funny lying about Benghazi and being the way they are?
Well, one could add to this list a number of other unsavory characters. I would put John Brennan, who I believe cooked the books on the memo, the talking points that were given to Susan Rice, which gave her a pretext for lying massively to the American people in the immediate aftermath of Benghazi. I think John Kerry is equally willing to perform this kind of role. A guy you may or may not have heard of yet, but I hope you'll focus on more. We need your help on him too. Tom Perez, new appointment just announced to the Secretary of Labor. Labor. One thing that I would argue that these folks, and by the way, Susan Rice may turn up shortly as the next National Security Advisor. One of the things they have in common is a commitment to this idea of engaging the Islamists, the Muslim Brotherhood. And which gives me, I guess my best response to you, sir, is I don't know that they have to be told to lie. I think they think this is the right thing to do. And whatever it takes to advance this practice of engagement, this accommodation, this effort to show our sensitivity, our multiculturalism, our diversity, our political correctness, or to compel Israel to make concessions. They don't have to be ordered to do it by the President of the United States. They want to do it. This is one of the reasons why Mort Klein and this organization fought Chuck Hagel, because he wanted to destroy Israel. I really believe. Oh, that may be over the top. He wanted to take steps that will absolutely, indisputably lead to its destruction. Is that better? Is that more politically correct? The point is that there's a rot here. And I'm sorry to say that that rot manifests itself not simply in the president and his policies and in his political appointees. It's also evident in the Senate, where these guys were more or less given a pass. Chuck Hagel a little less so. We actually had enough votes to defeat him. But unfortunately, a lot of people voted for him before they voted against him. Does that sound familiar? And it again comes back to us. And I hate to bring this burden too much to you because you're stand-up folks. But we need you to multiply. We need you to be finding others who don't quite get it as you do. If there is to be the kind of counter-pressure that will, if not stop these sorts of appointments, at least hold those who fill these offices accountable. and hopefully thereby prevent some of the worst of what I think is otherwise inevitable.
Before we take the next question, I want to recognize Jared Ben-Caro, who is an IDF veteran. Thank you for your service. Gentleman in the grand up.
I'd like to ask a wider question. At the end of his Decline and Fall, Gibbon wrote that the invention of gunpowder meant that the opulent and civilized had to defend themselves against the destitute and barbarous. Recent developments in Pakistan and North Korea indicates that nuclear technology has reversed this situation. What would the head of the Center for Security Policy suggest that America's security policy be in view of this development?
Any other questions? Didn't you say we only had time for one? Look, that's a hard question, and it's a brilliant one. I wish I had a good answer for you. I think, personally, the problem is not nuclear weapons. You may have heard in my background that I worked on this for President Reagan. It's who has them. I don't have any concern at all, assuming it's the case, that Israel has nuclear weapons. Not at all. Or that the Brits have them. The French, some days. The Indians? But the Pakistanis? The North Koreans? The Iranians? And let's be clear about something, folks. One thing is absolutely a certitude. I call it the dirty little secret that nobody knows. We are going out of the nuclear weapons business in this country. And I don't simply mean that we are making unilateral or perhaps negotiated cuts with the Russians. That's one manifestation. I don't even mean that it's the declared policy of the United States government that we're going to rid the world of nuclear weapons. Short aside, I fought tooth and tongue against a treaty that was going to rid the world of chemical weapons. And anybody heard the news out of Syria in the past 24 hours?
Yeah.
Oh, turns out we got rid of ours. We're pretty far along in doing so, and the world is not rid of them. Same would happen with nuclear weapons, only more so. I'm talking about the fact that our nuclear deterrent, the weapons themselves, the launchers on which they are placed, the industrial capability to support them, are decades past their shelf life. And nobody knows that, except, I'm pretty sure, our adversaries. Which means that they're not as safe and as reliable or as effective as deterrents as they should be, or could be. And that brings me back to the question. I'm a believer in peace through strength. It's one of the things President Reagan really imbued in me. And I think that the idea that we want to signal to anybody, the North Koreans, the Pakistanis, the Iranians, or the host of countries that will get into the nuclear weapons business for sure, if they haven't already started, when the Iranian bomb is finally achieved. Or for that matter, allies of ours who have heretofore relied upon our deterrent as a basis for saying we don't need our own. This is, in other words, a formula for a lot more nuclear weapons in the world in all the wrong places, and that makes for a much more dangerous world. So my best answer to you, sir, is I think we need to refurbish and make credible again the deterrent, soup to nuts, the weapons, the launchers, the industrial capability. I think we need a missile defense. 30 years ago this week, my old boss made the wildly controversial statement that it would be better to defend Americans than avenge them. Do you remember the histrionics? Star Wars!
Yes.
destabilizing the world, getting out of the anti-ballistic missile treaty, Armageddon coming, and on and on and on. Well, the point was, this was obviously a necessary corrective to a truly lunatic idea that we would be perfectly safe if we were perfectly vulnerable. Can you imagine? We actually had a treaty with the Soviet Union that said that. Thank God for Iron Dome as evidence of how important it is to defend our people. And Arrow, and so on. These are the kinds of things that I think we need to have in parts, or at least as a response to the threat that is emerging.
I want to thank Frank Gaffney. Frank has a train to catch. We are really indebted to your patriotism, to your Zionism, your support for Israel, America, and our organization. Thank you. We have a limited number of copies of Frank's book. I'm sure he'll be happy to sign if you buy. If you want more, if we run out of copies and you want a book, let us know. We'll try and get you one. Lee Bender's here. He will sign copies of his book. We have literature in the back. Please help yourself. There's other things for purchase that supports ZOA. Please join ZOA if you're not already a member. Please renew your membership and be active. Please come to our Washington mission, May 22nd, vitally important. You'll have an opportunity to hear Frank Gaffney again, along with Andrew McCarthy and Daniel Pipes. There is literature at the AISH event. There's other events, there's flyers and literature for. Thank you all for coming tonight. Again, I wish you all a wonderful Pesach and a meaningful Easter. And thank you, and drive carefully.